Most people believe healthier chickens come from buying something new. A different bag of feed. A stronger supplement. Another mineral mix someone recommended online. I used to think that way too. Every time something felt slightly off, fewer eggs, thinner shells, messy droppings, my first thought was, maybe I need to add something. But after keeping chickens for years, I started noticing a pattern. My birds weren't always lacking more input. They were lacking balance. Sometimes their digestion just needed settling. Sometimes their environment needed drying out. Sometimes their minerals just needed evening out. And the surprising part? Some of the most helpful tools I now use don't come from a store at all. They come from my own fire pit. Simple charcoal. Simple wood ash. Not dumped everywhere. Not used randomly. Just small, steady adjustments in the right places. And those small adjustments made a bigger difference than another expensive supplement ever did. If you care about building a flock that stays productive without constantly chasing new products, make sure you watch this all the way through. These 5 tips are simple, but when you apply them properly, they quietly strengthen your entire setup. Today, I'll walk you through 5 practical tips I use to make my chickens healthier and more productive using charcoal and ash, and how you can do the same without making your system complicated. Tip 1. Let chickens choose charcoal for better digestion. Chickens are curious eaters. If it's on the ground, they'll peck at it. That's just how they are. They don't carefully inspect every bite. They sample. They test. They experiment. So along with their balanced feed, they sometimes swallow things that aren't exactly ideal. Slightly damp grain, bits of spoiled kitchen scraps, moldy crumbs you didn't notice, or random things they scratch up in the yard. Most of the time their system handles it well. They're tougher than we give them credit for. But every now and then, you'll see the signs. Droppings get loose. A hen looks a little dull. Egg production dips for no obvious reason. They just seem slightly off. That's usually a gut issue before it becomes anything bigger. This is where clean hardwood charcoal quietly does its job. Charcoal acts almost like a sponge inside the digestive tract. It can bind certain toxins, absorb excess gas, and help calm irritation before it turns into something more serious. It doesn't replace proper feed. It doesn't cure disease, but it supports balance. Here's exactly how I use it. After burning clean hardwood, and I mean clean, untreated wood only, I save a few fully burned pieces. No charcoal briquettes. No treated lumber. No construction scraps. Nothing artificial. When it's completely cool, I crush it down into coarse granules. About the size of grit. Not powder, because powder can be messy and unnecessary. Not large chunks either. Then I place it in a small container inside the run and leave it their free choice. I don't mix it heavily into their feed. I don't force it. I let them decide. And they do. Some days they ignore it. Other days they peck at it steadily. They seem to know when they need it. Over time, I noticed droppings becoming more consistent. Birds recovered faster after sudden weather swings or diet changes. They held body condition better through stressful periods. Nothing dramatic. No overnight miracle. Just fewer small digestive problems stacking up. And that's the real benefit, preventing small issues from turning into bigger ones. The only thing you have to watch is not overdoing it. Charcoal is helpful in moderation. If it becomes a major part of the diet, it can bind nutrients you actually want absorbed. Think of it as a support tool. Offer it. Keep it dry. Observe your flock. That steady approach is what makes it work. Tip 2. Reuse wood ash to return minerals to the flock. Every time you burn hardwood, something valuable is left behind. Most people see ash as waste, just something to sweep up and throw out. But that ash still holds minerals the tree pulled from the soil over decades: calcium, potassium, magnesium, and small trace elements that matter more than we often realize. When you think about it, throwing it away doesn't make much sense. Those minerals came from the earth. The tree stored them. You burned the wood. Now they're sitting there in concentrated form. Instead of discarding them, I return them to my flock, but I do it carefully. And that word matters. Only ash from clean, untreated hardwood. No painted boards. No plywood. No pressure-treated lumber. No trash from the burn pile. If there's any doubt about the source, I don't use it. Once the ash is completely cool, I sift it lightly to remove larger chunks of charcoal or debris. What I'm left with is a soft, fine material. Then I use it in small amounts in two places. First, I mix a portion into the dust bath area. Second, I lightly scatter some in dry sections of the run where the birds scratch. And when I say lightly, I mean lightly. You shouldn't see thick white patches on the ground. If it looks like you poured out a bag of flour, it's too much. Chickens naturally take in tiny amounts of ash while dust bathing and preening. They don't need large quantities, just access. Over time, what I've noticed is steadier eggshell quality, especially during molting season or long rainy periods when birds are under more stress. I see fewer random soft shell eggs and fewer thin shell surprises. It's not a magic fix. It's a slow balancing effect. Where people get into trouble is thinking more must be better. Too much ash can irritate their feet, dry out the soil excessively, or shift the ground balance more than intended. This is about recycling minerals, not coating your run in powder. A light hand works best. Used this way, wood ash becomes part of a closed loop, nutrients that would have been thrown away quietly supporting the flock instead. Tip 3. Mix charcoal into bedding to reduce ammonia smell. If you've kept chickens for any length of time, you know ammonia is one of those problems that creeps in quietly. You don't wake up one morning to a disaster. It builds slowly. A little moisture in the bedding. A few damp corners that don't dry properly. Humid weather that lingers longer than expected. At first, you barely notice it. But your birds do. They're much closer to the ground than you are. They're breathing that air constantly. And even mild ammonia over time can irritate their eyes and respiratory system. When that happens, productivity usually dips before you connect the dots. That's where charcoal becomes surprisingly useful. When I refresh my coop bedding, especially in a deep litter setup, I mix in a few handfuls of crushed charcoal as I layer in dry materials like wood shavings, dry leaves, or straw. Not in thick piles. Not as a separate layer. Just blended evenly through the bedding. Charcoal naturally absorbs moisture and helps trap some of the compounds that create strong odors. It doesn't eliminate the need for cleaning. You still have to manage your coop properly. But it slows down that heavy ammonia buildup. The result isn't dramatic. You won't walk in and think, "Wow, this smells like nothing." But you will notice the bedding staying fresher longer. The sharp smell takes more time to develop. Damp spots don't turn sour as quickly. Over time, that means less respiratory stress on your birds and a healthier overall environment. It's one of those quiet improvements. No flashy results. No complicated setup. Just a small habit that helps the coop stay balanced and more comfortable for the flock. Tip 4. Strengthen the dust bath to help control parasites. If you've ever dealt with mites or lice in the middle of summer, you know how fast things can get out of hand. Parasites are part of chicken keeping, especially in warm, humid weather. You can keep things clean, you can stay alert, and they can still show up. The good news is chickens already have a built-in defense system. Dust bathing. When a hen finds a good patch of dry soil, she'll sink into it, flap, roll, and work that dust deep into her feathers. She's not just playing. She's cleaning herself and disrupting parasites. But here's what many people overlook. The quality of that dust bath matters. If the soil stays damp, it's less effective. If it's just plain dirt in a shady, moist corner, it won't do much. So I improve it slightly. I mix dry soil with coarse sand to give it structure. Then I add sifted wood ash, roughly 1 part ash to 5 parts soil and sand combined. That small amount of ash makes a difference. It helps keep the mixture dry. It creates a slightly alkaline environment that mites and lice don't thrive in, and it spreads easily through feathers during bathing. Now, I want to be clear, this isn't a miracle cure. If you already have a heavy infestation, you'll need to take stronger action. What this does is reduce pressure before it becomes a full-blown problem. Over time, I've seen fewer severe outbreaks during peak summer months. I notice less feather damage around the vent and neck areas. The birds seem more comfortable and less restless. The key is balance. If you use pure ash, it becomes too fine and can irritate their skin and respiratory system. Too much can also dry things out excessively. But mixed properly, it strengthens what chickens already know how to do naturally. You're not fighting nature. You're supporting it. Tip 5. Adjust with the seasons, not just the calendar. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is treating every month the same. They find something that works, and then they apply it year-round without paying attention to what's changing around the birds. But chickens don't live by the calendar. They live by the weather. Humidity shifts. Rainfall increases. Temperatures rise. Daylight shortens. Molting begins. And each of those changes affects their stress level, digestion, mineral needs, and parasite pressure. So I don't use charcoal and ash the exact same way all year. During humid stretches, when bedding tends to stay damp and droppings can loosen up, I make sure charcoal is available free choice. That's when digestion and moisture control matter more. If I change feed brands or adjust their diet, I also keep charcoal accessible. It helps smooth that transition. During molting season, when birds are rebuilding feathers and pulling heavily from their mineral reserves, I pay closer attention to adding sifted ash to the dust bath. Rainy months get the same attention because wet conditions increase stress and parasite activity. In very dry months, though, I ease back. Too much ash in already dry conditions can irritate skin and create unnecessary dust. That's when I focus more on ventilation and shade instead. The point is simple. Your flock changes with the weather. Your environment changes with the seasons. Your management should change too. Healthy systems aren't rigid. They respond. They adjust. They stay balanced by paying attention. And that awareness, more than any single material, is what keeps a flock steady and productive over the long term. Let me pause here and say something important. None of these tips are going to double your egg basket by next week. That's not how steady progress works. What these small adjustments actually do is remove pressure. Pressure on digestion. Pressure on mineral balance. Pressure from damp bedding. Pressure from parasites building up quietly in the background. Each issue on its own might seem minor, easy to ignore. But when several of them stack up at the same time, that's when you start seeing inconsistent laying, thin shells, dull feathers, or birds that just don't seem as strong as they should. Charcoal and ash won't create magic. What they do is reduce those small stress points before they grow. And when you layer those reductions together, something changes. Egg production becomes more consistent. Shell strength holds steady. Birds handle weather swings with less trouble. You spend less time reacting to problems. And maybe just as important, you spend less money chasing quick fixes. Instead of constantly buying new inputs, you begin using what you already have. You burn wood. You save charcoal. You sift ash. You return it to the flock. That's where real resilience starts. Not from adding more, but from wasting less. If you want to try this, keep it simple. The next time you burn clean hardwood, set aside a few solid pieces of charcoal. Crush them into coarse bits and place them in the run. Sift a small amount of ash into the dust bath. Don't overhaul your entire system. Don't overapply. Just add these pieces thoughtfully. Then observe your flock for a full season. You're not looking for a sudden spike in egg numbers. You're looking for fewer setbacks, fewer soft shells, less odor, fewer parasite flare-ups. Over time, fewer problems add up to stronger production. That's how you build a flock that performs steadily year after year. If you appreciate practical, down-to-earth methods that actually make sense long-term, stick around. There's always another small adjustment that can make your system stronger.